The greatest danger isn't outside you. It's not failure, rejection, or death. The real danger is forgetting who you are. The real battle is within. The world mirrors your unconscious. What you refuse to face inside, you'll keep meeting outside. Every person who angers you, every situation that frustrates you, every betrayal that breaks your heart, they are not random events. They are reflections of your inner world calling you to wake up. Life does not punish, it reveals. The outer world is a theater where the hidden parts of your psyche are projected onto the screen of reality. What you see around you is not separate from you. It is your unseen self made visible, your inner wounds speaking through the language of circumstance. We spend our lives trying to control the world, trying to make people behave, trying to fix the symptoms while the source remains untouched. We run from pain by blaming others, we avoid fear by seeking control, we escape loneliness by chasing love, but every time we turn away from what is inside us, the lesson returns in another form. It comes as a new conflict, a new disappointment, a new heartbreak, each one more intense than the last, not because life is cruel, but because life is compassionate enough to keep showing you the mirror until you finally look. Inside every person exists a kingdom of light and shadow. We are not only who we appear to be. Beneath the surface of our smiles and ambitions lies a realm filled with forgotten emotions, ancient fears, and unhealed wounds. These are not mistakes in your design. They are the raw materials of transformation. When you ignore them, they rule you from the dark. When you confront them, they become your allies. The battle is not about destroying the darkness. It's about integrating it, understanding it, and realizing that even your most painful aspects are trying to bring you home to yourself. Every time you react with anger, the world is showing you your own unresolved fire. Every time you feel judged, the world is showing you where you still judge yourself. Every time you encounter betrayal, the world is revealing where you've abandoned your own truth. It is not the outer event that holds power. It is your interpretation, your emotional echo, the resonance that comes from within you. Life is a dialogue between your conscious choices and your unconscious patterns. What you resist persists, because the universe will not let you forget who you are. To awaken is to reverse the gaze. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" you begin to ask, "What in me is being shown?" That single shift changes everything. Suddenly, enemies become teachers. Obstacles become invitations. Pain becomes a signal, not of punishment, but of potential. When you look within, you begin to understand that the battlefield was never out there. It was always the space between who you think you are and who you truly are. The unconscious holds every memory, every emotion, every part of you that you've ever rejected. You may have buried your rage because it wasn't nice. You may have buried your sadness because it made you feel weak. You may have buried your power because it made others uncomfortable. But whatever you bury does not disappear. It waits. It manifests through the faces of others, through the challenges of fate, through the patterns that repeat across your life. You keep meeting the same story in different costumes until you claim the part of yourself you've exiled. The battle within is not fought with weapons, but with awareness. Awareness is the sword that cuts through illusion. It allows you to see the invisible forces shaping your reality. It reveals that every external conflict is an invitation to heal an internal division. When you stop projecting your pain outward and start integrating it inward, the war begins to dissolve. You start to see that people are not against you. They are expressions of your own unintegrated energy. The person who challenges you is showing you where you are still fragile. The person who loves you unconditionally is showing you what you are capable of becoming. The person who abandons you is teaching you how to return to yourself. The deeper you go into your own soul, the more clearly you see that the world is not random. It is responsive. It mirrors your vibration, your beliefs, your emotional state. Fear sees a hostile universe. Love sees a living cosmos. The same world appears different depending on the eyes that behold it. When you heal your inner world, your outer world rearranges itself accordingly. The mirror changes when the one standing before it changes. The real battle is not about defeating your darkness, but about befriending it. You are not at war with your pain. You are in conversation with it. You are not meant to destroy your shadow. You are meant to illuminate it. When you finally face what you've been running from, you discover that the monster in the dark was never there to harm you. It was there to show you the way home. Your suffering is not an enemy. It's a messenger. It's a sacred guide leading you back to the forgotten chambers of your heart, where your lost fragments wait to be reclaimed. To face yourself is the most courageous act of all. It requires honesty, patience, and the willingness to see beyond appearances. It means sitting with discomfort until it becomes revelation. It means understanding that healing is not the removal of pain, but the integration of meaning. When you stop resisting what is within you, the energy once trapped in conflict becomes available for creation. That is the alchemy of consciousness, turning your wounds into wisdom, your fear into strength, your shadow into light. Every human being walks through the same invisible battlefield. Some fight others, some fight themselves. But those who awaken understand that the true victory is peace. The peace that comes from no longer needing to project your pain onto the world. The peace that comes from knowing that everything you experience is an echo of your inner landscape. When you transform within, the echoes change, the people change, the story changes. Reality itself begins to align with your healed state of being. This is why the sages, the mystics, and the truly awakened ones do not fear the world. They do not curse the chaos, nor blame the storms. They understand that the world is the mirror of the soul. The thunder outside is the roar of awakening within. The darkness outside is the shadow asking to be seen. The conflict outside is the call to integration. And when the inner battle is faced with courage, the outer world softens. Life begins to flow in harmony because the warrior has finally looked within and remembered that the battlefield was never meant for destruction. It was meant for transformation. Your shadow is not evil. It's exiled power. The parts you deny become monsters only because you abandoned them. What you repress doesn't die, it descends. It sinks beneath the surface of your awareness and waits. It waits to be seen, to be felt, to be integrated. It whispers through your fears. It moves through your reactions. It hides behind your judgments. It shows itself in the people you can't stand, in the behaviors you can't control, in the emotions you pretend not to feel. What you cast out of your conscious mind doesn't disappear. It simply becomes the unseen author of your fate. The shadow is not your enemy, it is your forgotten self. It is every emotion you were told was wrong, every impulse you buried to survive, every truth you silenced to be accepted. It is your fire, your passion, your wildness, your hunger for life that society taught you to suppress. As a child, you learned that to be loved, you had to be good. To be accepted, you had to be predictable. To be safe, you had to be small. And so, piece by piece, you began to exile everything that didn't fit the image of who you were supposed to be. You buried your anger because it frightened others. You buried your desire because it made them uncomfortable. You buried your authenticity because it was too much for the world to handle. And now, those buried parts live in the shadows of your psyche, waiting for your courage to bring them home. The shadow turns into a monster not because it is evil, but because it has been denied love. Anything unloved becomes distorted. Anything unseen grows desperate to be recognized. The anger you repress becomes rage. The fear you suppress becomes paralysis. The desire you deny becomes obsession. The sadness you avoid becomes emptiness. The power you refuse becomes destruction. When energy has no conscious outlet, it forces its way through unconscious means. That's why people explode in anger, sabotage their relationships, or fall into addictions. These are not failures of character. They are cries from the shadow demanding to be acknowledged. To meet your shadow is to meet your truth without filters. It's to face the raw and unedited version of yourself that has been hidden behind masks of politeness, performance, and perfection. The shadow contains your darkness, yes, but it also contains your brilliance. It holds your creativity, your intuition, your vitality, your primal strength. It holds the passion that once made you feel alive before you learned to fear your own depth. To reclaim your shadow is to reclaim your soul. Because wholeness does not come from being pure. It comes from being real. When you begin to look into the mirror of your own darkness, you discover something paradoxical. The very thing you feared most is the source of your greatest light. The rage you feared reveals your capacity for justice. The sadness you avoided opens the doorway to compassion. The jealousy you denied uncovers your longing for self-worth. The shame you buried transforms into humility and power. The parts of you that once seemed unholy begin to reveal their divine function. Nothing within you was ever meant to be destroyed, only understood. Facing your shadow is not comfortable. It's not meant to be. It feels like walking into the underworld, into the places you swore you'd never go again. But that descent is sacred. Every hero in every myth must journey into the darkness to find the treasure buried there. The dragon guards the gold because your deepest fears protect your highest truth. If you want to awaken, you must be willing to descend. The light that never touches darkness is not real light, it's illusion. True illumination is born from the marriage of light and shadow, from the integration of opposites within you. Your shadow shows up most clearly in your projections. What you hate in others, what you criticize, what you condemn, what you can't stand. These are reflections of your own denied aspects. You cannot see in another what is not in you. If someone's arrogance infuriates you, look within. Perhaps it mirrors the confidence you've suppressed. If someone's vulnerability disgusts you, maybe it reflects the tenderness you've been taught to hide. If someone's freedom makes you envious, it may remind you of the chains you've chosen to wear. Every judgment is a breadcrumb leading back to an unclaimed part of yourself. When you stop fighting your shadow and start listening to it, transformation begins. The energy that once tore you apart begins to heal you. You realize that the anger that frightened you was a call to protect your boundaries. The fear that paralyzed you was an invitation to trust life. The sadness that haunted you was a message from your soul asking to be felt. The parts you thought were broken were never broken. They were just exiled. When you bring them back into consciousness, you stop being divided. You stop leaking energy into suppression and self-denial. You become whole again. The journey of integration is not about perfection. It's about honesty. It's about saying, yes, this too is me. It's about holding your contradictions with love. You can be both strong and afraid, both kind and fierce, both light and shadow. The human soul is not meant to be one-sided. It is vast, complex, and infinite. The more you embrace your shadow, the more authentic you become. You no longer need to pretend. You no longer chase validation, because you are no longer at war with yourself. The shadow is your unclaimed power waiting for permission to return. When you stop rejecting your inner world, the energy once trapped in shame becomes the fuel for creation. Artists, leaders, mystics, All who transform the world do so because they've made peace with their darkness. They have learned to harness it rather than hide it. They have turned pain into poetry, fear into courage, wounds into wisdom. That is the alchemy of the human spirit, the transmutation of exile into expression, of rejection into revelation. So when the shadow rises, don't run. When the uncomfortable emotions come, don't numb them. When life mirrors your hidden wounds, don't look away. These are not punishments, they are invitations. Each moment of darkness is a doorway back to power. The parts of you that you have judged, condemned, and buried are not your enemies. They are your forgotten children waiting to be embraced. To love them is to reclaim the throne of your own being. To hold them is to remember that nothing within you was ever unworthy of light. The shadow does not ask for your fear, it asks for your compassion. And when you give it that, it stops haunting you and starts guiding you toward the wholeness you were always meant to embody. Light without darkness is illusion. Wholeness is not purity, it's integration. You can't awaken by rejecting your night. The idea that enlightenment is only light, only peace, only love, is a half-truth that has wounded countless souls. The path to true awareness is not about escaping darkness, but about walking into it with eyes open. The deeper the darkness you can face, the greater the light you can carry. The sun and shadow exist together, one defines the other. Without contrast, there is no depth. Without night, day loses its meaning. Without pain, joy becomes shallow. Life itself is the union of opposites, and you cannot be whole until you embrace both sides of your being. We are taught to chase the light and reject the dark. We glorify positivity and demonize pain. We create false gods out of happiness and label sorrow as failure. But light that denies the existence of darkness is not light, it's blindness. It's spiritual denial disguised as awakening. The truth is that you were never meant to be flawless. You were meant to be complete. And completeness includes your rage, your grief, your confusion, your shadowed memories, your unspoken desires. These are not obstacles to enlightenment, they are the gates that lead to it. When you hide from darkness, you hide from half of your soul. You silence the parts of you that carry your deepest wisdom. The night within you holds truths that daylight cannot reveal. In the quiet of despair, you learn compassion. In the ashes of loss, you discover meaning. In the silence of loneliness, you meet yourself. Darkness is not the enemy of light, it is its cradle. Every star is born from the womb of night. Every soul that awakens does so by first descending into the depths of its own forgotten pain. Wholeness demands integration, not perfection. Integration means to hold your contradictions in sacred balance. It means you can be both divine and human, both fragile and powerful, both sacred and chaotic. The universe itself is built on polarity. Expansion and contraction, creation and destruction, birth and decay. You are not outside of that law, you are a living embodiment of it. The light within you grows only when you dare to explore the darkness without judgment. When you make peace with the parts of yourself you once rejected, you begin to feel an inner harmony that no external purity could ever offer. The obsession with purity comes from fear, the fear of being tainted, the fear of imperfection, the fear of losing control. But purity is static. It seeks to freeze life into an image of goodness. Integration is dynamic. It allows life to flow, to breathe, to transform. You cannot evolve if you cling to being pure. Purity wants to ascend, integration wants to embody. And embodiment is the purpose of awakening. To bring the infinite into form, to let the divine dance through the human, to allow your spirit to shine not by escaping the earth, but by rooting deeply into it. To reject darkness is to reject your own evolution. The night comes to teach you what daylight cannot. When everything falls apart, when dreams crumble, when hope seems gone, you are being initiated into a deeper truth. The darkness strips away your illusions, the false identities, the masks you wear to impress the world. It breaks you open so that light can enter places that comfort never reached. The dark night of the soul is not punishment. It's purification. It's the sacred fire that burns away all that is not real. Those who only seek light often become prisoners of their own shadow. They smile while dying inside. They preach love while suppressing rage. They speak of peace while avoiding their pain. This is not spirituality. It is spiritual bypassing. To pretend to be light while denying your darkness is to build your life on a fragile illusion. True light has depth because it has been tested by darkness. It shines not in avoidance, but in understanding. It knows what it's like to fall, to break, to weep, and still it chooses love. That is the light that transforms. When you accept your darkness, you stop being controlled by it. When you bring awareness to your fears, they lose their power. The monsters that once chased you become guides once you turn to face them. Integration doesn't mean indulgence. It means recognition. You don't feed your shadow, you listen to it. You ask what it needs, what it's trying to show you, what truth it holds. Every emotion you feel, even the ones you label negative, is carrying information about who you are. Anger shows where your boundaries were violated. Sadness reveals what you value. Envy points to your buried desires. Guilt exposes your inner conflict between truth and conditioning. Every dark emotion is a teacher wearing the mask of discomfort. To awaken, you must sit with your darkness until it speaks. You must learn to love the parts of you that you were taught to hate. This is not weakness. It is radical strength. It takes immense courage to face your own night. Anyone can chase light, only the brave descend into shadow. Only those who have walked through their own hell can hold space for heaven on earth. The light of a person who has faced their darkness does not flicker in the storm. It glows stronger because it knows where it came from. Integration is not a single moment of enlightenment. It is a lifelong dance. Some days you are sunlight, some days you are storm. Some days you rise, some days you fall, but both are sacred movements of the same divine rhythm. The universe is not asking you to be pure. It's asking you to be real, to stop pretending, to stop dividing your soul into acceptable and unacceptable parts. To remember that even your chaos is holy, even your darkness is divine. The moment you embrace your night, the false separation between good and bad begins to dissolve, and in that dissolution, you find peace. The light that comes from integration is not blinding, it is warm. It does not judge, it understands. It does not exclude, it includes. It allows you to see the world not as a battle between opposites, but as a unity of complementary forces. You realize that every heartbreak, every failure, every shadow was never meant to destroy you. It was shaping you into someone capable of seeing truth in its entirety. You learn that love is not fragile sunshine. It is the eternal flame that burns even in the deepest night. You learn that awakening is not escape. It is embodiment. It is saying yes to every aspect of your existence, to every color of your being, and letting them all belong in the vastness that you truly are. The self is the fire of transformation. When you burn away false masks, something divine and indestructible emerges. Beneath the layers of identity, beneath the roles you perform, beneath the noise of your thoughts, there is a living flame, the essence of who you truly are. It cannot be destroyed because it was never created. It is the eternal presence that watches everything come and go. But to uncover this essence, you must first allow the fire of truth to consume everything that is not real. The journey of becoming yourself is not about adding more. It's about burning away what no longer belongs. We are born pure, yet as we grow, the world hands us masks. We learn to wear them to survive. We become what others need us to be, what society rewards, what family expects. What culture approves? We shape our faces into pleasing forms and call them personality. But deep within, the soul knows it's pretending. Every false smile, every compromise, every moment of self-betrayal adds another layer to the illusion. And then, one day, something inside begins to suffocate. The soul can no longer breathe under the weight of its disguises. That is when the fire begins to stir. The fire comes not to destroy you, but to free you. It burns through the lies you tell yourself, the images you protect, the false security of approval. It shows you that the person you thought you had to be was only a mask built from fear. It strips away everything that is temporary so that only the eternal remains. This process is not gentle. Transformation never is. It feels like death because, in many ways, it is. The death of illusion, the death of the false self, the death of everything you used to cling to for identity. But through that death, something immortal begins to awaken. To meet the fire of transformation, you must be willing to lose what is false. You must be ready to let the masks fall, even if you've worn them for so long that they feel like skin. You must face the emptiness that appears when the old identity dissolves and resist the urge to fill it too quickly. The fire requires patience. It demands surrender. It will burn only what needs to burn, no more and no less. And as it does, it reveals the raw truth beneath, the essence that was hidden but never gone. This fire lives in every trial, every heartbreak, every moment when life pulls the ground from beneath your feet. It lives in failure, in endings, in losses that force you to see what cannot be taken away. Pain is not punishment, it is purification. When everything you depend on crumbles, when all your masks are stripped away, what remains is the real you. The you that is beyond roles, beyond titles, beyond the stories you tell about yourself. That is the self the fire reveals. Most people fear the fire because they think it will destroy them, but what it destroys is only what is unreal. The fire of transformation burns lies, not truth. It consumes the ego, not the soul. It dismantles illusion so that you may stand unguarded before existence. When you allow the fire to move through you, it doesn't leave you empty. It leaves you radiant. It burns away the false light of appearances and ignites the inner flame of authenticity. That is why the greatest teachers and mystics are always described as luminous. Their light doesn't come from outside. It comes from having been burned clean by truth. The self that emerges from the fire is not a concept. It's an experience. It's not something you think. It's something you feel in the depths of your being. It is peace that doesn't depend on circumstances, strength that doesn't rely on control, love that isn't afraid of loss. It is the presence that watches your life unfold without clinging to any part of it. The more you surrender to the fire, the more you realize that what you called you was only a mask. The real you has no name, no image, no boundary. It is consciousness itself, the silent witness behind all forms. The fire of transformation is both destructive and creative. It destroys falsehood, but in doing so, it forges truth. It burns the impurities of fear and ignorance, but from those ashes clarity arises. Just as gold is purified by fire, so too is the soul refined through experience. Every difficulty you've ever faced, every heartbreak that shattered you, every loss that forced you to start again, they were flames working on you from within, shaping you into something more transparent, more true, more alive. Without the fire, there can be no awakening. Without burning, there can be no illumination. Transformation is not comfortable because it demands honesty. It asks you to confront the parts of yourself that hide behind pride, to admit that the image you protect is not the truth. It asks you to see how often you live according to others' expectations instead of your own essence. The fire exposes these illusions not to shame you, but to free you. Every mask that falls reveals another layer of truth, another spark of divinity. The more you let go of pretense, the closer you come to your original nature, the divine spark that existed before fear taught you to shrink. You are not here to remain unscathed. You are here to be transformed. The purpose of the fire is not to leave you the same. It is to turn you into something more real, more expansive, more compassionate. The fire does not ask for perfection, it asks for surrender. It asks you to trust that what is destroyed was never meant to stay. It asks you to believe that from the ashes of your false identities, something magnificent will rise. The real you doesn't need validation, doesn't chase belonging, doesn't fear change. It simply is. It exists in stillness, beyond roles, beyond definitions. It watches the play of life with quiet knowing. The false self clings, the true self flows. The false self fears death, the true self knows it cannot die. When you begin to live from this place, life becomes lighter. The constant effort to be something falls away. You no longer perform, you embody. You no longer search, you remember. The self is the fire of transformation because it is both the destroyer and the creator within you. It burns what is false and gives birth to what is real. It dismantles illusions not out of cruelty, but out of love for your freedom. Every time you let go of something that isn't truly you, the flame grows brighter. Every time you face a truth you once avoided, your soul expands. The masks will always try to return, the ego will always whisper its stories, but the fire will always be there, patient, eternal, ready to burn away what keeps you from remembering who you are. Fear protects the door to truth. Every terror hides a treasure. What you're most afraid to face is your path to freedom. Fear is not the enemy. It is the guardian of transformation. It stands at the threshold between who you are and who you are meant to become. It whispers, it trembles, it paralyzes, but beneath its trembling voice lies a message. Here is where your power sleeps. Every time you turn away from fear, you turn away from growth. Every time you confront it, the walls of illusion begin to fall. Fear is not trying to stop you. It's trying to show you where your life's work begins. We are taught to avoid fear, to treat it as a signal to run, to shrink, to hide. But fear is a sacred compass. It points directly toward the places within you that need liberation. You fear what you do not yet understand. You fear what challenges your identity, what threatens your comfort, what asks you to grow beyond the familiar. Fear lives at the edge of every breakthrough. It guards the entrance to every deeper layer of truth. You cannot find your light by running from the dark, and you cannot find freedom by avoiding the place that terrifies you. The treasure you seek is buried beneath the dragon you refuse to face. The ancient myths understood this. Every hero must confront a monster before finding the gold. Every seeker must descend into the underworld before discovering enlightenment. These are not stories of fantasy. They are maps of the human soul. The monster is your fear, the underworld is your subconscious, and the treasure is the truth of who you really are. The dragon is not there to destroy you. It is there to test you, to burn away your illusions, to force you to remember that you were never powerless to begin with. The dragon roars because it guards something sacred, and every time you face it, it becomes less monstrous and more magnificent. Fear is a mirror that reflects your hidden potential. The things you fear most, failure, rejection, loss, loneliness, each reveal where you have placed your worth outside yourself. Fear says, "You cannot handle this." But beneath it lies the truth whispering, "You can." The intensity of fear is in direct proportion to the power that waits behind it. The greater the fear, the greater the transformation it conceals. If you run from fear, it grows larger. If you walk toward it, it begins to shrink, because fear feeds on avoidance. The moment you face it, it begins to lose its shape, and you realize that it was never as powerful as it appeared. Every terror hides a treasure because every fear hides a lesson. The fear of failure teaches resilience. The fear of loss teaches love. The fear of judgment teaches authenticity. The fear of death teaches presence. Fear is the teacher that does not speak gently, but always speaks truth. It strips away illusions of control and exposes what is real. It reminds you that courage is not the absence of fear, but the mastery of it. You become brave not by denying fear, but by walking with it, by listening to what it's trying to reveal. The greatest mistake is to believe that fear means stop. Fear is not a red light, it is a doorway. It's the soul's way of saying, pay attention here. Wherever fear appears, truth is close. It rises in the body as tension, as anxiety, as resistance. But these sensations are not proof of danger. They are proof of possibility. Your body trembles because it senses expansion coming. The mind calls it danger because it does not yet understand. The ego fears dissolution because on the other side of fear, the false self cannot survive. That's why every step toward awakening feels like death to the ego. It is losing control. But the soul rejoices because with every fear faced, another layer of illusion burns away. The path of transformation always begins with fear. When you begin a new chapter, when you take a leap of faith, when you speak your truth, fear is the first one to greet you. It asks, are you sure? It questions, what if you fail? It whispers, you're not ready. But these are not warnings. They are invitations to awaken your inner strength. Every time you choose to move despite fear, something ancient and powerful stirs within you. You begin to feel the pulse of your true nature, the fearless consciousness that exists beyond the mind. Fear and truth are two sides of the same coin. Truth liberates, but it also shatters illusions. That is why fear arises in its presence. The moment you get close to something real, the false structures within you begin to tremble. Fear is the echo of those collapsing walls. When you stop running, when you breathe through the trembling, the dust clears, and what remains is clarity. The truth was never outside you. It was buried beneath layers of avoidance. The deeper you go into fear, the more light you uncover. When you finally face your fear, it transforms. The monster turns into a guide. The obstacle becomes a portal. The pain becomes power. Fear is alchemy in motion. It takes your paralysis and forges it into strength. Each time you cross the threshold of fear, you grow larger than you were before. What once terrified you becomes the ground you stand on. What once felt impossible becomes natural. This is how evolution happens. Not through escape, but through confrontation, through surrender, through courage. To live without fear is not to eliminate it, but to understand it. Fear will always appear when you approach something sacred. The more meaningful the step, the louder the fear becomes. But now you know its language. When fear rises, you don't run, you listen. You breathe. You look it in the eyes and say, I see you. And in that recognition, its power shifts. Because fear was never there to stop you. It was there to prepare you. Every person who has ever awakened has walked through the valley of fear. Every artist, every leader, every soul who has dared to live fully has felt its grip. But they learned to dance with it. They learned that fear is not darkness. It is the trembling of light about to be born. The door to truth always has a guardian, and that guardian's name is fear. It will test your resolve, your patience, your faith. But when you finally pass through it, you realize that the door was never locked. It was you who hesitated to turn the handle. The path to freedom is the path through fear. The treasure of your destiny lies hidden beneath what you've avoided most. Your greatest love waits behind the heartbreak you fear to feel. Your highest potential sleeps beneath the risk you refuse to take. Your truth lives beneath the silence you are afraid to break. Every fear is an unopened doorway into deeper life. You don't need to destroy fear, you need to see through it. Because once you do, you realize that fear was never darkness. It was light disguised as a challenge, waiting for you to remember your courage and walk through the fire toward yourself. The real danger is unconscious living. The only real threat to your soul is forgetting your own depth, your own myth, your own divine reflection. You can face 1,000 storms and survive, but the moment you forget who you are, you begin to die while still breathing. To live unconsciously is to drift through life as a shadow of yourself. To mistake noise for meaning, comfort for peace, survival for purpose. It is to wake up every morning without truly awakening, to see the world yet never see yourself within it. You become a machine of habits, a reflection of others' desires, a vessel of forgotten dreams. The real danger is not the pain you feel, but the numbness that replaces it. It's not failure that kills the soul, it's apathy. Unconscious living begins when you trade your authenticity for acceptance. When you silence the voice of your own truth to fit into someone else's pattern. When you wear masks so long that even you forget the face beneath them. The mind becomes addicted to the illusion of control, the comfort of routine, the safety of repetition. You follow the same paths, speak the same words, repeat the same emotions, not because they are true, but because they are familiar. And the familiar becomes a prison. You begin to confuse the prison for safety, the chains for identity. The world tells you who to be, and you obey, unaware that obedience to false ideals is the quietest form of death. To live unconsciously is to live from the surface. You react, you perform, you chase, but you never descend. You build an image of success while your soul starves beneath the mask. You accumulate possessions, achievements, attention, but they never fill the void, because the void is not emptiness, it is the depth you've forgotten. The modern world teaches you to look outward for meaning, to find yourself in mirrors made of glass instead of spirit. You scroll, compare, consume, and call it living, but your inner fire grows dim. You lose the capacity to feel awe, to feel grief, to feel the pulse of the divine within the ordinary. And when feeling fades, humanity fades with it. The unconscious mind is not evil, it is asleep. It dreams your life for you while you believe you are awake. It repeats inherited patterns, ancestral fears, collective illusions. You think you are choosing, but you are reacting. You think you are free, but you are conditioned. You think you are living, but you are remembering a script written by others. To awaken from unconscious living is to realize that most of what you call you was never yours. It was borrowed from culture, from family, from trauma. True awakening is rebellion, a sacred revolt against everything that keeps your soul asleep. The real danger is to forget your myth, the unique story your soul came here to live. Every being is born with an inner narrative, a symbolic path that calls them toward purpose. But when you stop listening to that call, when you trade your myth for imitation, you fall into spiritual amnesia. You start to live someone else's dream, someone else's definition of success. You lose the sacred thread that ties you to the eternal. And once the thread is lost, the world becomes flat, mechanical, meaningless. You begin to believe that life is random, that beauty is coincidence, that love is weakness. That is the sickness of the unconscious age. Not the absence of knowledge, but the absence of remembrance. To forget your depth is to live only in fragments. You see the world as separate pieces instead of one breathing whole. You judge instead of understanding, control instead of surrendering, compete instead of connecting. You become afraid of silence because silence reflects your forgotten self. The noise of the world becomes a narcotic to keep you numb. You chase stimulation, not inspiration. You confuse pleasure with joy, distraction with purpose, repetition with stability. The unconscious life hides the divine behind layers of convenience, and in doing so, it robs you of your sacred hunger. When you live unconsciously, the soul whispers in subtle ways, a restless longing, a quiet dissatisfaction, a sense that something is missing even when nothing seems wrong. That unease is not failure, it is a message. It is your spirit trying to wake you from the dream. Every heartbreak, every loss, every crisis is a divine alarm clock. Life shakes you not to punish, but to awaken. Pain is not the danger, unconsciousness is. Because pain makes you feel, and feeling makes you real, but numbness makes you disappear into the machinery of existence, invisible even to yourself. The real danger is not darkness, it's blindness. To walk through life without seeing the sacred in your reflection. To forget that you are the universe experiencing itself. To let your light fade beneath the weight of conformity. Every moment you forget your divine reflection, the world becomes duller. Every time you remember it, creation stirs. You are not a passive observer of life, you are a participant in its unfolding. Every thought you hold, every emotion you repress, every truth you deny shapes the world around you. The outer world mirrors the inner one, and unconsciousness in the soul creates chaos in the world. To awaken from unconscious living is not to escape the world, but to see it clearly. To look into your own mind and recognize that heaven and hell are not places. They are states of consciousness. When you forget your depth, the world feels hostile, meaningless, mechanical. But when you remember your divine nature, everything begins to shine again. The tree becomes a cathedral, the breath becomes a prayer, every encounter becomes a mirror of the infinite. Awakening does not change the world, it changes the way you see it, and that changes everything. The only real danger is forgetting that you are both human and divine. Forgetting that your pain has purpose, your chaos has intelligence, your darkness has light hidden within it. Forgetting that your story is not random but sacred, that every struggle is part of your soul's unfolding. You were not born to drift, you were born to awaken. The danger is not death, the danger is living as though you were never alive. The danger is letting the world program your mind until your spirit becomes silent. Because when the spirit sleeps, the world loses its meaning. Unconscious living is the slow erosion of the soul's memory. But even in the deepest sleep, something within you remembers. A spark, a whisper, a pull towards something more. That pull is your divine reflection calling you home. To awaken is to turn inward, to face your shadows, to listen to the silence between thoughts, and remember that you are more than flesh and fear. You are the dreamer behind the dream, the eternal observing through human eyes, the divine learning to remember itself through the experience of being lost. The only real danger is to never remember that